that means exactly. Someone will have to tell me what the diaspora means. But people who are living outside of Africa and those who are living in Africa, and I thank you for being with us, and again ask that you be with us for the next 1 or 2 hours that we are going to be on air as we look at the issues that concern the people of Africa. In the studio, as usual today, for the usual panelists, I have Rachel, I also have Ndugu Irumba. Ndugu Garama is not with us today. I'm sure he's running the errands in town, but I hope he will not disappear like he did disappear sometime. And the next thing we heard, he had to be discovered in Congo. But he's within town, so he will be with us and suspect next week. Now, today we'll be looking at 1 or 2 issues on the African continent. But before we do that, before we go there, we shall begin from home with the history of Uganda 39 years, about 40 years ago, and I think we'll have that history, then we'll continue from there. I think that story is not yet ready, but it will be coming our way any moment. We'll be looking at the history of Uganda in relation to what is happening with the rest of Africa. Today, we are looking at the instability on the African continent. What is it that we are not doing right as the people of Africa? Why should it be that, of course, when we are talking about instability in terms of political instability, it is not only Africa which is actually experiencing the political instability, but I don't know why it has been tagged to us in most of the times. But we're also learning now that instability is not a preserve of Africa, because we also have seen other countries run into similar troubles in Europe. We have seen even the Americans, we have seen the Arab world. So but it is a major feature on the African continent. I'm trying to look at issues. Why is it that way, and why has it become so common, particularly within a few days, I think coming to about 2 days now, since we had the coup in Niger, and we are trying to look at what could have caused this, and why is it that West Africa particularly is also becoming very common with these coups. But before that, we normally come with what has trended or what has happened in the week on the African continent, and I will begin there with sister, the only woman in the house, Rachel, to take us through what she has seen happen on this African continent before we can proceed. So Rachel, you come in, please.
There have been a number of interesting developments. Surely at the top of the list in Africa, in African terms on the international scene, has to be the visit of different heads of state to St. Petersburg to meet President Putin on economic and other issues. Of course, Russia has been extremely keen to show that it will fill the gap left by the collapse of the Black Sea arrangement to secure the exports of Ukrainian grain and related foodstuffs. Russia has positioned itself as a very willing and capable partner in these terms. And so a number of African leaders, I think, will be gratified to find that the hope they had placed in Mr. Putin is being reciprocated in this fashion. Also on the table, other interesting arrangements that are being proposed. Mr. Putin is not being shy about proposing cooperations on the agricultural front, technologically, educationally. I think he wants to use this chance to reestablish the Russian presence in a bigger way than since the collapse of the Soviet Union. He has gone ahead to say he can unilaterally replace all the exports of Ukraine in terms of grain to the African continent because Russia has recently had its very best harvest in a great many years. It is the same Mr. Putin who is also very keen to fill the gaps that you just mentioned in terms of stability, whether it be Niger or Burkina Faso or Mali, where those particular populations have said they really do not want to continue with the Western way of doing things.
Yeah, sure.
So I think over the past week, Russia has been feeling better in terms of how the Western propaganda has been projecting them as an isolated entity without friends, without a future, and so on and so forth. Away from that, I think nearer home, on the East African front, there is a proposal for an electricity regulatory body of a regional nature.
But before you come to that, I think let's look at that. African leaders who now who went to visit and to meet with the Putin over the Russia-Africa cooperation something. And of course, could have expected more than those who went. But when you look at it, because the other time what we were talking about, when African leaders went to Russia and also went to Ukraine, and what came out of that, and we were saying, even if there was nothing of tangible that Africa realized in that meeting, it was a statement that, look, Africans are also conscious and concerned about the instability. But of course, someone who made a remark said, supposing grain was coming, would African leaders have gone to Russia and also to Ukraine to talk to the two heads? But even as that was happening, you now realize that like you said, Putin is not being shy about any of these things. He's telling African leaders that he can replace the grain that was being supplied by Ukraine to the poorest, and so the wording was the poorest countries in Africa. One is assuming, I think Africa is the one that needs food more than another part of the world. I don't think so. But that's what he's saying. But he's also saying that he can entirely supply and also deliver if need be. We shall supply you, not only supply you, but we shall deliver to your doorsteps if you need the food that you have been getting from Ukraine. But at the same time, he even went ahead, pulling out of the agreement that they had made, the UN brokered agreement that they had made with the Ukraine, the Black Sea, and at this time started bombarding the wheat and the grain that was there, so that because he had pulled out of the agreement anyway. So I think all said and done, Putin is also behaving in a way that is you can consider not realistically, because if you can supply the wheat, so you are looking now at the global politics turning food being weaponized.
But this is not a new thing. People weaponize what they have.
Exactly.
Because we know that Russia and Ukraine are especially well positioned in terms of cereals, wheat in particular. But we also know that this war is about redoing the world order. We know this. The Western Alliance is very keen on staying at the top of the heap. But Russia has been contesting that leadership. So now they want to enter the next phase of this contest of actually getting the alliances with willing partners moving. They don't want the war in Ukraine, which can go on for the foreseeable future, to stop other arrangements. He was very keen to emphasize that Africa really possesses a key to the future. Whoever controls a sizable stake of Africa in terms of resources, not just manpower, but also rocks and other things, will be in a position to power the economic engine for many years to come.
Richard, this is what we have been telling the African people, that the next struggle is not going to be about a lot of many other things, but it's going to be a lot of the resources that the people have, including food.
True.
And whoever is going to have food is going to control the politics of the day. Now, if you
Others have been weaponizing oil for a long time.
Exactly. So it is moving away from now what we know to what we didn't know, and that's why we are having a lot of these issues that and efforts to undermine the productivity of Africa so that we don't produce enough food, because if we continue producing enough food, Russia is not going to sell its food, Ukraine is not going to selling food, the Americans are not going to sell their food. So the first thing is to curtail Africans from doing that. Then the other thing is that the politics. If you stop war, then people are not going to sell their arms. And we have been talking about this only in terms of Africa, but now the Ukraine war has brought market for the arms that are being manufactured by the Europeans, by the Americans, but even outside of those Western countries. People are also now, we have been having drones from Iran, from wherever, so that people are now using that as a testing ground. Now, we Africans have experienced this from time immemorial and time and again. We are not wishing that we would have more wars elsewhere so that people can also learn lessons, but it is happening. Now, war, the food, and also now from COVID we learned the medicine. So the politics around some of these issues are not just as we seem to see with our naked eyes, but there's a lot of politics behind that. And then I think as Africans, we need to have on the extra lenses that we can be able to see this and see how we can position ourselves. And Ndugu Irumba, on the same issue of Russia and African leaders in Russia.
Well, if I can pick it up from you, war is a business. And it's a business mainly for the benefit of the world leaders. What they saw, the ones who call themselves these headmasters of the world, the people who control the global politics. So war is crafted as a business, but a business that is going to drain Africa to the benefit of the West and America. So that is no doubt that there will never be a time when there is no war in Africa. Number two, Comrade Mututa, medicine is a business. That's why I told you many times that AIDS, this COVID-19, and other diseases, these are manufactured diseases. Why? It's a business. COVID has a patent. AIDS has a patent. It means that somebody owns them. Somebody owns. So now that's biological war. Water has been used as a weapon also, comrade. Just like food. Food is a business. People must fight. Now that's why you hear America that collects food here, puts it in its granary, then makes it so difficult for Uganda and Africa to have its own food through the use of GMOs and so on, making sure that they change your indigenous crops, foods, into theirs, so that they manage you, so that Monsanto can manage your food at home. You know, every family in Africa now, before you have food, Monsanto has made some money. So that's a business. So you're not going to have a planet Africa without war until we, the Africans, realize that actually this is a war designed to keep us where they want to keep us. Now, the other thing I wanted to observe, Comrade Mututa, recently the President Museveni could not manage to go to Russia when the African leaders went to Russia and Ukraine on account of ill health. But then there was another school of thought that was saying, no, I think the gentleman is simply avoiding to go there for political reasons. So now, yesterday, the president was in Petersburg, in Russia. I hope that narrative now has been ably answered. That no, the man did not fear to go there for anything, but I think it was about his health, because now he's there. And his arrival there has been so, emphatic, and I think it's a big statement. And I also think that African leaders, together with Russia, are beginning to speak in unison that the world order, this so-called America and Europe designed after the Second World War, has actually only worked in their favor. And so there is a need to sit down and see how the entire world can benefit from your order. Failure to do so, Comrade Mututa, there is a likelihood of going for third world, for third world war. It can happen unless the Americans stop thinking that they are the only headmasters of the world. And so these are statements. I know for a fact that African leaders being in Russia is not something America is taking lightly. And the African leaders are aware, and America is also aware. So it means the lines have been drawn. We either sit down on a table and speak, or it can be a recipe for the third world, so that we reorganize, reorg. You see, we always disorganize to organize. Yeah. If you realize that someone is eating food alone, you come and step on it. Let all of us miss it, lose it, so that we can think of having a food for the entire family, not for one individual. So yeah, but now I think these are good steps for me, in my opinion, that Africa is finally trying to disengage from the so-called drone master planners of this world.
But why do you disengage from one, then jump on the other?
Now, that can be, Mr. Mututa, if you have an enemy.
Why should we, like, we had the Africa-American summit in New York. We're now having the Africa-Russia summit in Pittsburgh. We're going to have the Africa-Korea summit in Seoul. Soon then
they'll
have
about China yet.
Exactly.
And neither are you talking about Turkey.
Exactly. So why are these loitering all over the place?
It is for the simple reason you're up for grabs. Because you fail to have your own roots, you fail to have your own answers, so someone must think for you. Nature cannot stand a vacuum. So if you don't have answers, you don't have means to actually sustain yourselves, someone will provide those means, at your expense, of course.
Yeah, because if we had this Africa-Russia summit in maybe South Africa, then we have another one maybe in Nairobi, we had another one in Addis and Kampala. To me, it will make more sense.
But that's
in other words,
the degree to which you're disempowered. If the other man is the one who needs my resources, we've said that many times, why am I coming to Washington to hear that you need my milk?
Yes.
Why can't you come to Kampala? That shows the extent to which they're actually playing. They're just playing games. I mean, really, Russia, it can be understood because Putin has this warrant over his head. But Korea and Washington, why don't they come to Nigeria? Why don't they come to Mali? Why don't they come? You're the one who says you need this stuff. I mean, that shows how weak and really inconsequential African leadership is at this time.
Can be, definitely. I was not even surprised. I think in Russia, about 17 leaders, I think, of Africa, I did participate with that. Of course, people are saying the West must have pointed the finger at the rest, who I know for sure, like President Ruto was very bitter when Russia bombarded the Black Sea fleet of the ships carrying wheat. But that shows how insignificant we are looked at from the outside world.
Because really, it's understandable why the old powers in this day and age, we're talking about the British and the Germans and the Italians, those are old powers. They've been at it for hundreds of years.
Exactly.
But an upstart in terms of global politics, such as Korea, to have you go to Korea? Why? Because these were our colonizers. Maybe this subservience is a natural progression of being told what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And you know, you're sitting on an order that they established. Maybe that one is acceptable. Maybe it can be understood. But this new guy on the block, Korea is also summoning you to Seoul. What is this? You're a new guy on the block, you come.
So that is Africa for you. Now, let's look at part of the problems that we're having. I think that's failing to sort our issues back at home. But of course, even when we try to sort out issues back at home, do we even have the mutual respect for each other that you can come to my home and tell me, please stop beating your wife?
No, we don't.
In the case of Sudan and Kenya.
That one is really bad. The leadership in Khartoum has been very clear that of the people they expect to mediate in their crisis, Kenya cannot play a part. They say Kenya is actively engaged in propping up one side of the conflict. So they say it was so bad that the leadership this very week dared Kenya to set foot on Sudanese ground and see if they return.
One is speaking like the man who was in Iraq, who was called Chemical Ali, who said we shall slaughter them like pigs. So I think one is also assuring Kenyans that should they have their food.
That they have no issues with the East African force, but should it include Kenya, that will be a recipe for all-out war.
Exactly. So that's the problem. Remember, we're going to Congo for these peace initiatives, and I'm sure some Rwanda is not participating, but also others were saying...
Not by choice. They said, please, you're not welcome.
Exactly. So, if supposing America came to say, you people sit down and we talk, would they have said, you are the one selling arms to the militias that are killing people here? Or if Russia came to sort issues in Sudan, will they say you are the ones who are supplying arms through this Wagner group that is stealing all the resources in Sudan? So why do we, in fact, this is what I've been saying people, even on the show here, sometimes we blame these Americans for nothing. It is us to blame.
True.
Why can't we sit, if we cannot respect ourselves, that we can sit down and sort our issues? Why are we blaming people who are coming to steal when we are fighting? In Ndugu Irumba, we are saying something.
I think for the case of Kenya and Sudan, there is like, you know, these childhood fights. First of all, some of the people that are destabilizing Sudan and South Sudan are residents in Kenya. You get it? They actually have businesses in Kenya. Now, Kenya has intelligence that those same people whom you are giving comfort, even having businesses running in millions of dollars, are the same people who are actually causing instability back home. So it means you are part of the problem. Now, I want to sympathize and maybe somehow understand Sudan, that it may be difficult at this moment to be part of the solution bearers in the instance of Kenya. I don't know if you get me, Madam Takali. It may be a bit difficult for them to acknowledge that you can be part of the solution, yet you're actually one of those being suspected to be funding them.
Yeah, but Kenya...
Now, I know your comparison with America and so on, but America is funding almost every group every rebel group in Africa. Yeah, but that also has something to do with the positioning. What is the standing of America in African politics? In fact, all the governments of Africa, America has a hand. So, you see, you may not at this moment use the positioning of Kenya in the Sudan conflict with America. You just have to be a little bit realistic. Although all of them are almost doing the same mistakes, But I think it is very difficult for Sudan right now to say America also step down. Because you never know, even the small little life that they are still having could be dependent on those foreign funders, and America is one of them. And Kenya could be funding zero.
Yeah, so that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
Is it that because we don't have the resources, of course, when you have resources, definitely you control the stage. But is it because of resources that we don't need to listen to the people within, to our brothers and sisters in the continent, that we can only, mainly, and in most cases, listen to someone who is coming from elsewhere, telling us, dictating to us this, and including things that we may not want. But that, again, brings us to the discussion of Niger. What is happening in Niger?
I think Niger is, you know, there are cases where they say that someone's growth or maybe adolescence was delayed. And I think this is the situation here.
You brought it that low?
Yes. For the simple reason that what did not happen and should have happened at the turn of the change of power in the independence era is what people are attempting to restart in West Africa at this time.
Today?
French Africa in particular. Because unlike the other colonizers, whether you're talking about the Portuguese or the British or the Germans, the French model of colonization was rather extreme. For them, they even went to the extent of even keeping the keys to central banks of those nations, yeah, where you actually are required to deposit your monies in Paris. And if you need to buy medical supplies, having earned the money on Nigerian soil, you actually have to apply to France for your own money. So their own level of exploitation is unparalleled in terms of the colonial order of the past. So in my view, what the people of Niger, the people of Burkina Faso, and the people of Mali are trying to do is to restart that discussion from square one. These people, unlike the British and the others, maintain military bases in those countries to this day. At least the British pretended and took their bases. At least the Germans pretended and took their bases. So these people are saying, we don't need your military bases on our land. We don't need you to tell us when to eat and when to drink and when to stand and when to sit. So we really need to revisit the nature of our so-called emancipation. And it is of course of an extreme nature, because the French intervention in their affairs on a day-to-day basis is also extreme. The latest pretense to be helpful to the people of West Africa has been their direct intervention in the jihadist military excursions. France pretended that they are actually an answer to the military excursions of the jihadists, yeah, but no progress has been made there. Instead, they have expansive mining operations, especially for uranium. They have been exploiting this thing under the guise of saying we are keeping the jihadists away. So these coup leaders, and we are not saying it's right to overturn established legal regimes, but these coup leaders are disenfranchised for the simple reason, remember, it's the military men who are thrown at these battles.
No, sometimes
poorly equipped and so on.
When you look at African politics, you wonder whether we are progressing, or like you said, delayed adolescence, that sometimes we begin behaving like
we are in baby class.
Exactly. Because now I'm told, according to the news that we are getting from there, that not even the military commander, the commander of the Presidential Guard,
who stopped a previous coup in 2021?
Exactly, two actually has averted two coups earlier. One coup was supposed to occur 2 days to the swearing in of the current president, who actually is now ousted, if that's the word. But
France says it is not final.
I don't even know what they are saying. Now, the information we now gather is that the Russians approached this guy, and I think they had a deal. And the president came to know it. And you know, Niger is now one of the, I think is the only country which is still accommodating most of these camps you are talking about.
Three of
the
them.
Barracks, the army bases.
German, British, and American.
Yes. And they has been heavily funded by Americans for that, because even the army entirely is funded. But now it's approached by someone, said, look, maybe you are not doing enough. We can even do more, and we can facilitate you. So the guy said, suppose no. Some other person whispers, say, unless you throw out that guy, it's going to cause you trouble. You need to get rid of him and replace him immediately. And in the process, when the president was still looking for the possible replacement, I'm told the leader of the land forces had been identified to replace him. The guy, I think, was wiser, faster, and then moves on. But what we are looking, should it happen the way it has happened, there is not going to be any new development or anything new in that country that is going to happen different from what these people today are doing. We have been talking about the machinery that has been set, the framework that has been set. You just enter and do or even worse, what the other person was doing, and then you also get out bruised, if not hosted. So what we are looking at, can't the African continent have a sober leadership that will look at issues on this continent as issues, as problems for us, the people of Africa, than looking at ourselves as the problem of one another? Because then you are going to overthrow someone, he goes out, you also come in the same way, behave sometimes even worse than who you overthrew, but then the life continues like that. So that vicious circle has made us to be invited, not even invited, to be summoned to the capitals of the West to go and discuss issues that concern Africa. No wonder we cannot be respected. But when you look at this area of West Africa now, talk of Chad, talk of Mali, talk of now it goes up to Libya, the whole of that area, the Sahel area, the instability which is there. Can't African Union or the rest of Africa, ECOWAS for example, of course they have tried, come up with a solution that can put an end to some of these small, these are definitely small conflicts.
But like I've just submitted, you're looking at them as small conflicts. But you need to go down and dig, who is fueling these small conflicts? What's the intention? I told you, war in Africa is a business. If you look at the entire Sahel region, those are oil-rich countries. America and the West, they want that oil. They want those resources. They cannot allow you to stabilize, Comrade Mututa. So, I don't want you to blame two brothers fighting in South Sudan, two brothers fighting in Sudan, two brothers fighting in Libya, in Niger, in Nigeria. No, I want you to go down and realize that this is a business, and a business that does not belong actually to Africa, but it belongs to somebody else. And that person also supplies guns. You have seen, I have just seen some leaders in St. Petersburg. One of the rooms that they visited, that they picked a lot of enthusiasm and love, is the exhibition for guns. Where are the latest guns?
So why do you
go there and say,
no,
God,
remember this particular year, because of the conflict, Russia could not hold its military, its gun show.
The parade, yes.
Yeah, I think in the Middle East. There's this huge gun thing that they usually run, but because of security considerations. So I think Putin is now doing it in another game, because it is the largest Russia is the largest supplier of arms to Africa.
Exactly.
So he's again, I'm hoping that one day these African leaders will see that there is no man in in power in the Western world, who cares about Africa?
I normally tell people, because if you, and like the president talked about it in passing, but for him I think it was relating it to value addition. When President Museveni was saying that if Russia and definitely China are our friends, why are they taking our raw materials?
Actually, there was a study released yesterday here in Kampala, and it zeroes in on the benefits, on the costs of this Chinese Ugandan corporation. And they have a number of observations. Among them, that their concerns are that, first of all, many of these infrastructure projects, which are a flagship of Chinese corporation, are not actually as up to standard as they could be.
Exactly.
Not only that, but their cutthroat interest rates are sinking African economies at a record pace. So the day we realize that there is no person who occupies a place of power in China, in America, in Europe, in South America, in the Arab world, who cares about Africa? Their only reason is to be in a place to take.
And of course, coming to that,
so if you could allow me to finish my point before Rachel came in, you have also realized yourself that, like I'm saying, the African leaders in St. Petersburg, their biggest interest in the exhibition is the latest ammunition, latest guns. That's why they have picked all their interest. And you will see them on social media. I've seen them, some of them even, posturing with those guns, latest machines. Russia has not exhibited any type of food. There is no food.
No irrigation.
Or irrigation system, nothing.
That's what I tell people.
So that's what you want, you people. That's what you love, Africans. And so, a marketeer, I'm a marketeer. A marketeer will actually first study your interests and make a product that is tailor-made to your interests. So Africa, they know that we are not lacking food. Although we tend to be showing that we lack food, we have more food than any other person.
Exactly.
So our problem has been guns. Let them supply you guns. You fight as they take off your wealth.
As long as you are fighting,
so tomorrow you're going to blame. So tomorrow you're going to blame Russia. Russia is a manufacturer of guns, and that's what you buy. So what's the problem? Give and take. You have money, you have resources. Yes, give you guns. Go and defend yourselves. Then tomorrow I facilitate the person coming to destabilize you in your country. Russia will supply guns to, let's say, Konyi or another person, and then supplies you also guns to defend, to fight Konyi. All of you are being supplied by Russia.
Yeah, so
so you don't know.
That's what we're saying here. That why should we even think that these people are our big friends at all? In fact, yesterday someone was making a comment, say, really, or is Russia now becoming isolated? Of course, in that context, that he has to look for Africa to say, because, and I did mention it here, that Russia has been an ally of Africa through all these struggles, through the non-aligned movement. It's true. But you are not giving us food.
But you see, you asked a question. Are they that isolated to be asking for visitors? You don't have to be isolated to need visitors. Is Britain isolated? Or is America isolated? It's a question of hard-nosed business, like he's saying. You calculate and you say, who's my rival in this thing? Where can I get a shorter distance to what I need? It is those hard-nosed calculations. And one thing I think we have failed to understand as Africans, because for us, our things are about humanity, our things are about being nice and polite. White men and other colonizers have hard-nosed calculations. There are no emotions about these calculations. There are no two ways about these calculations. East or west, he's going to get where he needs to go. He may do it smiling, he may do it dancing, but by golly, he'll get the prize.
Exactly.
For us, as we smile and dance, we forget what brought us.
You think
we lose
everyone-
the focus.
You think everyone is smiling and
You
dancing
see, because
with you.
Putin is smiling, you think he's with you. Because he shook your hand, you think he's thinking about you. In that moment, as he's shaking his hand, he's thinking, okay, how much closer am I to upstaging America? That's what he's thinking. For you, he's thinking about Mozambique. He's thinking about his latest hassle with Britain. That's what we don't understand. For us, niceties overwhelm us. The fact that someone put you up in his best hotel in Moscow, you think it means he is actually being nice.
Good, yeah.
One day we need to wake up and realize that their
So
style
we are
of doing
sleeping?
things is of course we are.
Now I think the sleeping has been on for long.
Of course we are sleeping.
Oh,
Because
yeah, I'm awake.
because
We're talking about the leadership here.
Oh, okay.
because if you look at all this, what we give and what we take, of course what we give over the table is nothing compared when it comes to balance of trade.
What they take away from us.
But when they take, what they take below the table is more. Because on the table when you are trading, you are giving you this, we are giving you this, but what they are grabbing down there is far, far more than what we get from them. But that is not a problem. For me, I have been, and I always say, the problem is also with us. When do we wake up? What is going to wake us up as Africans? Are we going to continue lamenting all the time about people being so bad to us when we are nice to them? Can't we stop also one time being nice so that we are also considered bad for the sake of being good to ourselves? Can that
So
time
you
come?
want us to change from who we are to who they are?
No, not
Africans-
really.
okay.
Not really. But I think it should really be a case of making sure that even as you're nice, you really are nicest to your own self.
Exactly.
There is no contradiction between being nice and getting what you should get. Unfortunately, the journey of niceness always gets us off the prize. That's really where the problem is.
When we come back from the break, we will be looking at the issues happening in the West African part of this continent and look at what could be the solutions and what could be the problems. Is this going to be a spillover to other parts of the continent, or we are going to have the last violent coups in this continent ending with the part of West Africa? Don't go away. We shall be back shortly. Thank you.
In 2005, Harris International was formed Your Excellency, this is how we do things at Harris.
I once again congratulate you upon the commissioning of a new production plant and wish you success in all your future endeavors. I thank you all.
Announcement. We are glad to announce to you a total military coup in Uganda today, the 27th July 1985.
Uganda's nightmare of fierce tribal conflicts has brought Kampala to ruin. A bloodless coup, although an unknown number of people died in fighting or were murdered later, has put an end to Obote's rule. Obote left Uganda in tatters, taking millions in currency from the city's central bank before fleeing the country. A legacy that will be long remembered, for his face will appear on banknotes for years to come. The capital is quiet, but in the heat of victory, after hours of heavy fighting around the military and civilian centres of the capital, ill-disciplined troops ransacked the city. Not a single shop escaped 3 days of looting. Shelves were stripped bare, and businesses run by Obote supporters put to the torch. The evil of an ill-disciplined army has ceased, but in the early days of a new regime, no one's sure of lasting peace. A dusk to dawn curfew empties the streets, very few dare break it. The army is in supreme control of the capital, and a very much more relaxed atmosphere has returned, although there's heavy armaments around the main military headquarters. People are moving about freely, and we found no hostility from the Ugandan troops. In fact, it's been quite the reverse. At military council headquarters, they're still trying to bring divided factions into an interim government. The man who spearheaded the coup, Brigadier Basilio Okello, and his chief of staff, returned pledging a new start for the country.
We want unity because so long we have been stubborn up. We already learned from that. We appeal to all Ugandans to come, to forget the past, and come to develop Uganda in peace.
The military council wants Obote returned from wherever he may be.
As far as we are concerned, we want him to be brought back as soon as possible. And of course, he will face the law of the country. Whatever criminal charges, whatever offenses he has committed, that will be according to the law of the country.
The new head of state is General Tito Okello. After attending Mass, he's a devout Roman Catholic. The General welcomed us to Kampala, saying that we could see for ourselves that stability is returning. But the General himself goes nowhere without a heavily armed guard that never leaves his side. The new leaders have promised to establish peace on the rule of law and return to democracy. It's all been said before, but there is renewed hope that the curse of Uganda's brutal past may yet be lifted. Brent Sadler, ITN, Kampala.
That is the history of Uganda, and it's not very different from the rest of the African countries that have gone through similar episodes of takeovers. And I think in Niger they are saying they are overthrowing the government because of poverty, because of insecurity, and the other thing is the poor performance of the economy. And I think similar statements were made here when Uganda had the takeover of Basilio Okello. So when you look at that history and then you compare with the other countries that are falling in the same category, you realize that I think within Africa we have similar problems. We go through similar stages, but again we end up coming back to the same issues that we have gone through. And that's why we're saying, can the African Union, can the ECOWAS, for the sake of West Africa, or SADC for the South African countries, do something that will stop these coups from recurring on the continent of Africa? Now, Rachel, when you look at what the claims that now people are the soldiers that have taken over in Niger, what they are saying, do you find there any anything substantial that will think will will spearhead this country beyond what it is today?
The problem with the African equation is that we learn nothing, and we obviously also forget nothing. The situation in Niger, it can't be that the reasons they claim are the reasons for the instability.
2 years in power, the president has been only.
But the history of this country informs us that this is the 5th coup.
Exactly.
Since the independence in 1960.
And from who?
well, different leaders from France.
Particularly that one.
Yes. But they had a coup in 74, and they had a coup in 96, they had a coup in 99, they had a coup in 2010, and now 23. They are now saying, among the things, that there has been poor management of the security situation. But there were no jihadists fighting Mali in 1974, or Niger in 1974.
Yeah.
Okay. If you say that the situation is impoverishment or extreme poverty, why has Niger not done anything about this situation, or something that allows others to think that there's progress since 1960? Because these are the things that we keep asking ourselves. In 1960, 61, 62, we were saying, okay, all the reasons for our problems are Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Within the opening years of the post-independence era, those were tenable arguments. But now, 70 years later?
Later, yeah, really.
Really? Okay. France and Germany and Italy are still doing their monkey business, but so are you. If you're 70 years old and you're still claiming every last one of the outcomes surrounding your life are a reason, a direct product of your father's actions, no one can listen.
Are you talking about Raila in Kenya?
That one also. Now, Mr. Ruto is saying, Dr. Ruto, he's saying, now let's talk. What has he been waiting for?
But he's the one who said he will never, his government will be strong, that they will never need a handshake like the weak government of Uhuru.
I started by saying the unfortunate case of Africa is that we learn nothing and forget nothing. We don't take lessons well, and we are quick at repeating the same mistakes. You wonder, this man who says he's not open to negotiations, is he sure this back and forth is the way forward? If Kenyatta, as you say, or whoever, was a weak leader, how are you better? If you're not better, how are you going to improve the situation? That takes me back to Niger. What inspired the coup in the 70s and in the 90s and in 2010 and in 23 are the same problems. They may be dressed in different gerbs, they may be claimed by different actors, but the dynamics have not changed one bit. So why is it that we are not moving?
So the greed for power.
It is the same issues.
That
okay, at the opening of the post-independence era, people claimed we need our independence back. Okay. After you got it back, 70 years later, some even say today that we were better under the white man. There are people who say that one.
Yeah.
That yes. There are people who say the schools worked better, the infrastructure was good. There are people who say you know, whatever it is, that it was working well. Well, we were not the final decision makers, but the services were what they should be. Why 70 years later can't we do better is the question. That is what is driving these coups. It is not a tribal situation, it is not because the military is, but the people still have the same concerns as in the independence era. Why are we not moving is the question.
That is why for me, that's, Ndugu Irumba is coming in, but that's why I don't blame others so much for doing whatever terrible things they are doing to us. We have ourselves, a beautiful woman who moves at night. What do you expect?
That's for you to know.
Ndugu Irumba.
Beautiful woman. What about when she moves during the day?
At least you are protected.
For Ruto and Odinga, and for me I think both of them are being funded by the same networks. Odinga is being funded by Americans to keep the fire burning. America has interest in Kenya. Some of those interests, Ruto has started speaking Pan-Africanism. When you start speaking Pan-Africanism, there are some interests you're not going to koto.
But it's the same Ruto who was in bed with some of them.
Yeah, but now we are talking about a Ruto in presidency. Forget about the machinations you make, you promise for you to galvanize support to enter the State House.
We have cases.
When you enter state, let me finish my thought. When you enter State House, you start now reading different narratives. where do I want to take my people? Ruto is starting actually to speak the very language Gaddafi used to speak. That is not good for the American. So there is an Odinga here who is a puppet of those people. So they are funding him, filming him so that he can keep the government
I'm not calling him a puppet.
For me, this is my statement. It's me, not you. It's me. I think he's now he's very well. If you check on Ruto's now, Odinga's passport, and you check where he now moves so often to, and the people he meets, it is those people. If you check on his passport, and some of the meetings are clandestine. So they want to use Odinga as a machinery to keep William Ruto's government in check. If you're not giving this one, please, Odinga, you start tomorrow. Start tomorrow walking to the streets. Now, William Ruto, being that he's a first timer in the State House, he's trying his level best to see that he balances the power. But, take it or leave it, there are things that he's going to do which he wouldn't have done if the Americans were not using Odinga to destabilize his country, his government. So, I somehow understand that Ruto is in catch 24/7. He's between a rock and a hard place. How do I... William Ruto very much well still loves his power. Because he's a first timer. He's a hustler. I don't know whether he's still a hustler now.
Has never been.
But now, their interest that you remember, American slogan is America first. Whether it is correct or wrong, America first. Trump has been so much on this, and Biden is, although he's not speaking about it, but those are the interests of America.
Well,
that's why they're in Ukraine.
Actually, for me, I have no problem with that. But I also want Africans to say Africa first.
Yeah, but
why can't you also say
but
so?
now, you may say it and believe it, but do you have the capabilities to push it? Gaddafi used to say, I'm Africa first. Where is he now? Ruto is speaking the same language. Watch Ruto, what is going through. Other African leaders are watching, just keeping quiet. They're not bringing, do you know that this Odinga can be called by African leaders in a meeting and they say, please Ruto, please Odinga, Africa's interests first. Please. That's why you have these other, that's why in EU, you have European Union. America, that's why you have United States of America. If somebody is trying to sell the interests of America, they call you to order. But now in Africa, look, who is calling to order these leaders?
Look at it this way. Africans can call Ruto or Odinga to order when need be. But let's look at the basics. Ruto is saying Raila is being a saboteur to the economy, which is true. I mean, if we are going to have people, I believe Raila Odinga deserves like 20 canes on his back. 20 in the morning. Yeah, but then while you are caning him, you also, while you are caning him, listen to what he's saying.
Which is what?
Including the raising costs of living.
Is it Ruto who caused it?
But Ruto is also saying we are even adding more.
Yeah, but let me ask you.
But also, the same man is saying, by the way, there's a problem on those servers. Why can't we open those servers?
Look, people have been opening servers for a long time. But like President Museveni often says, do people eat computers? Because after we've opened the servers, and
then we find out.
Oh, by the way,
that you didn't steal my election.
That has happened before, where he opened and even had an election overturned. Do you remember?
Let me ask you, Mr. Mututa.
The people's livelihood.
No, for me, what I'm saying, let this man call this old man and say, Mzee, hii mambo ya State House ni wachie. But we can discuss on other issues.
With such as what?
Issues of economy, issues of sharing of government. We can discuss. And what is wrong? Because if you give Raila half of the cabinet, are you appointing a Ugandan?
Remember, he was prime minister at one point. Remember?
Yes.
Didn't he exit on his own? Because for him, he's rather greedy, by the way.
No, but
So
you
whether you give him 2
first of
apples, he
all,
wants 10.
You give him what he wants, because what
Why?
he wants is
Why?
not going to take.
By the way,
because you
by
have
the
not
way,
also.
by the way, by
you
the
have
way,
not
by the
also
way.
come-
What do you
By
mean
the
what he
way,
wants? He wants the
by the way,
chair.
let me ask you.
Because you have not also come clean.
By the way, let me ask you. Why should Kenya be taken at ransom by Odinga's interests as a person? Does Odinga believe in the rule of law?
No, when you
Wait
look at
a minute.
issues,
Wait
Odinga is
a
not
minute.
acting as a
Does
person.
Does Odinga believe in the rule of law? If it's a yes, the rule of law demands that if you are not contented with election results, you go to court. Did Odinga go to court? The answer is yes. Did the highest court in the land make a ruling? The answer is yes. Now, Odinga, do you want to put up your own court? So that the ruling
now,
they make that is in your favor is what all Kenyans should adopt.
If that's the case, why can't government of Kenya arrest Odinga and put him in jail if he's alone?
That is now,
Because that is what he wants.
that is a political that needs a political lens.
Do you know that actually?
What are the repercussions? Because I have told you already that don't look at Odinga and you think that's Odinga. That's an American. That's a white man.
But
So when you arrest that white man in the black skin of Odinga, what are you calling for in Kenya?
So the issue is, you are looking at these two mercenaries, and you have a country in the middle. But I think Ruto's big problem is not actually Raila Odinga. Ruto's biggest problem are the people he's working with.
No.
Because
No, I want to say no.
No, what I'm saying is, if Ruto cannot talk to Raila, these issues are not going to stop. And I'm sure Ruto himself doesn't have a problem.
But you're not being fair. How many people have talked to this same man? He's the same man who was on the other side of the equation in the days of Kibaki. Am I right?
Yes.
He was the same man on the other side of the table in the days of Kenyatta.
Then stop stealing his victories.
So, no, it shows that the man himself is the #1 problem of Kenya.
Okay. Can we get rid of him?
How?
That is extreme,
He's a Kenyan.
and actually will throw the country
He's a
into
Kenyan.
overdrive.
Yes,
You can't afford that.
why overdrive?
Overdrive because there are people who he has actually brainwashed to believe that he's the answer to Kenya.
I want you to,
And those people are sizable number.
I want you to remember.
But I also want to tell you people
remember
this.
that in the recent elections, they almost divided the country into two.
No, not almost divide the country into two. The country of Kenya is divided into two.
Yes.
Because
In terms
if
of
you are
votes
weak,
and
if you are
support.
going to be so weak that you win by an unknown number of votes against a small another one, then that becomes a problem. But of course, the Ruto and the Raila problem in Kenya is not a new problem. It's not a new issue, because
No, the Raila problem.
other than
Ruto
the
is new,
two,
the
other
Raila
than the
problem.
two people, the issue of tribalization of elections and leadership in
Politics.
Kenya also
Tribal politics.
needs to be looked at, because if you are going to rely on the political on the tribal clubs and groupings
Tribal
to win
If
an
you're going to
election,
play a tribal card.
then that's going to be a problem. If I don't win, then what about the tribe that supported me? That becomes a problem.
Ndugu
But
Mututa, the problem in the Kenya equation is the big man syndrome. The big man syndrome says the political space has to be substantively occupied by one man, and who has sidekicks, maybe 1 million sidekicks. In other words, if the tribal formation you're talking about, if it has to be represented by one person, in this case, Mr. Raila. But the problem has the same dynamics. For example, in the local scene, you see what is happening in FDC. And it is the same big man syndrome.
But that's an African problem.
That's what I'm saying. So it is more than tribal. It is that big man syndrome where it says, where now the Jaluos say, it is only Raila. But is that true? Is that true? If your only representation is problematic, why do we need him? You mean all the people of Jaluo, all their sentiments, all their thinking, all their intellectual prowess, all their achievements are contained in the man Ruto? Sorry, the man Raila.
But are you also saying that these people are so myopic that they are also idiotic? They are not looking at issues as they are happening?
What I am saying is that the big man syndrome of individuals who capture the essence of a people is the problem. For example, okay, you're saying that if the people are sidelining the Jaluos, and by extension, Mr. Raila, okay, bring another one. Is there no other among the Jaluos who can actually meet the aspirations of the people of Kenya? Why are you stuck with this guy who has failed to get you where you're going? Paka when? 40 years? So we are saying that the lack of better thinking concerning how we need to reach our political ideals is the problem. Because why are you leaning on this one man?
Because he's the man who can be heard.
Has he been heard all these years?
Yeah, I think it's being heard.
In the days of Kibaki, he was not heard.
If it can cause people to say, let's sit down and we talk.
Can't you see that this particular vehicle is not what you need?
But it's the only vehicle.
But it's a question you've been asking. We as the people of Africa, why are we continually engaging folks who cannot get us where we need to go? And so the white man sits and says, well, you have your problems, I'll add you some. Because in the days of the white man, we had the same issues. Just like in the days of Kibaki, the people who support Raila had the same issues. In the days of Kenyatta, they had the same issues, again with Raila. Now the days of Ruto, you're still with the same issues, with the same man. So you're saying, why are we saying it is the problem of the Germans and the Greeks when it is the same issues? Whoever changed State House in Dar es Salaam, it is the same.
Yeah, because I think the greed issue has to be answered. And sometimes it goes actually beyond the big man syndrome or big woman syndrome, because also having big women.
There are no women who are causing these issues. It is the big man syndrome.
But when you look at the African problem, is it that we don't have the extra sense of saying, well, and leadership, by the way, is not only the political leadership. We have other people in other agencies of the state who have influenced issues, who have helped government to deliver, but also have been sober enough sometimes to help people. Now, when you look at the issue of, again, talking about Kenya in relation to Niger, you find that there is that divide between even the tribalism within the army. Now, this man who is supposed, because has not come out openly to admit that he's the one who has ousted his boss, but the others who are saying he should be the one who was leading the elite forces of the presidential protection. He comes from a bigger army. I mean, from a bigger area where people in the army are recruited. And I think in Uganda also, in the past, we had those problems that armies were seen to be coming from a particular area, and this has been common in most of the African countries. Of course, with time, a lot has been done, but still, the institutions of government also needs to be looked at when people are being recruited. If the Jaluos are in the major authorities of government, then maybe the story could be different in Kenya, and I'm sure even in Niger, that even when you say you want to take over government, people will say, but why? Because there are many other people in other forces, there are many people in other areas of the state. But where you find the marginalization continues, then sometimes the big man syndrome does not stop with the big man only, it goes down even the capture of state institutions. I think that's also part of the big problem that we have in Africa. Ndugu Rumba, you are saying something.
I think one way you are correct, but also, like we have already mentioned and stated, we tend to be blaming ourselves as African leaders, forgetting our positioning economically. Because when you are weak and the system is designed to exactly do that, it's going to be difficult for you, Comrade Mututa, to really have independent decision, even at your own level at our homes in the villages. You find that a family that cannot provide very well to its members, salt, food, and education, and so on, when other members come to contribute, even those from your own family, community, like relatives, there's a way they tend to now treat you. So Africa is suffering from that. And we have failed to come together as a continent and have uniform decision making. I told you that America is called United States of America because many states came together to become powerful. And so the decisions are actually always uniform. If any of the governors in USA behaves contrary, they will bring him to order because they will say America's interests first. Same applies to European Union, EU. And all those countries are powerful, but when they now become even one unit, they become more stronger. Africa, it is only the continent that is joining us to say, I'm an African, she's an African, you're an African. The continent. All other things, socially, economically, and politically, we tend to act in isolation. When you act in isolation, be rest assured that you'll be manipulated. Comrade Mututa, the problems we are seeing in Niger, the problem we are just seeing here across here in Kenya, Odinga, all these African leaders now, especially the East African region, they understand Odinga's interests. And they understand who is actually funding him. Why can't they call him to order? All these East African presidents sit down and invite Odinga. They say, Odinga, what is your problem? You are working for the white man, we know. Because I'm sure they know. But these are the interests for East Africa. These are the interests for Africa. Odinga's instability in Kenya affects all of us in the region and finally in the entire Africa. So that should concern us in unison so that we act in. When you leave that problem of Odinga to to William Ruto, finally, when he overpowers Ruto, it will affect the entire East African region. So Odinga should be a problem to the region, not to William Ruto. And for me, I believe that Odinga has never had some strokes like in Uganda here. If you gave that old man like 20 strokes non-stop on his butt, but he would change.
Yeah, but also...
he would change. Don't kill him, just give him, he's an old man. Give him 20 and you see whether he will come back tomorrow.
But
this kind of how they are handling him with kid gloves. He's taking Ruto for granted. He's taking Kenya for granted.
Raila will also say, well, you're telling me that I'm a problem. If the meeting of the African heads of state sat down and said, you know, Mzee, well, sasa you have become a problem kwa Kenya. He will also tell you, but you know, mwambia huyu kijana aliiba kura yangu. So that the problems are more inclined within, intertwined within there, that we need to because Raila is now riding on the issues of the suspicions, if they were not confirmed, of the electoral system. That if we were to have sober leadership, let's also be clear from day one when it comes to elections. And for me, that's why Tanzania has come down a bit. I don't know if we need the big human syndrome also, because what the president has done is, the first thing was to sit down with the people of opposition, because during Mzee Pombe's time, there is a man they pumped bullets and the guy just refused to die anyway. But she sat down with these people, said, we are all Tanzanians. Today I'm there, tomorrow there will be someone. If there are issues, why can't we talk as Tanzanians? Yeah. And that happened.
You see, Comrade Mututa, because the Tanzanians are suitable. They are suitable. I want you to imagine, by the way, let me also tell you, that it is not true that the only opposition figure in Kenya is Raila Odinga. No, it's just that he is the most stubborn man, most unrealistic sometimes, There are many opposition leaders in Kenya. There are very many. I have been to Kenya. I know they speak even much better, even in terms of policy, than Raila.
Yeah, but Raila has a point,
Auntie,
he has told you that all this time his victory has been stolen to the court until the court said yes, they awarded him the nullification.
No, comrade, if you're building a system of democracy, and we have all said that whenever you have a grievance, we should come to Comrade Rwatoro here. When we come to him and have agreed, actually you are the one who has taken me to him, we go there. And Rwatoro makes a ruling in my favor. You say I'm not accepting.
Yeah, but Rwatoro
now, do you expect him tomorrow when he makes a ruling in your favor, you expect me to accept also? So it will always be a fight. So if you have respected the Rwatoro is our chief, whatever he decides that is final, accept the results.
Okay, next week
the highest court in the land made the ruling. Do you really want to imagine that you understand better than the entire court of Kenya? Do you want to be the one now to twist every institution
but
to work in your favor?
You remember, comrade,
that when it does, now there is a democracy?
You remember, the comrade, that
it is only democracy when it is in your favor?
The problem is not even with the court. Even before issues went to court, you remember the people in the Electoral Commission said, these are not the things we stand for. But suspicious enough.
That quagmire finally ended in court. That is the resting place, my friend.
The difference between some of the forefathers of the present political dispensation in Africa understood what it means to move us forward than the present crop.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Mandela, towards his end, the end of his term
as a president,
as a prisoner, he had the opportunity either to sink South Africa in a bloodbath or to enter a compromise with the existing powers at that time. He had the black folks lock, stock, and barrel in his hands. They were willing to listen to him, whatever it is that he had to tell them, including throw yourselves at the massive military power of the white man. That is the cost we'll pay for our independence. He prevailed upon some of the most radical among the fighters for independence. He prevailed at great cost, by the way. Because there was a man, Chief Buthelezi, who was a turncoat, a sellout, who had been used, like this same Raila, to destabilize the African cause for independence in South Africa for donkey years. He was benefiting, he looked like you and me, but he was really pandering to the cause of the white man. So what I'm trying to say, when this man had all the power, as does Raila rather, to deliver the people who believe in him into the dispensation, the democratic dispensation that the people of Kenya want, in a way that is acceptable and tenable, but he has squandered it these many times. If he was to get to a point where he demonstrates that he is selfless in as far as this cause is concerned, Kenya wouldn't be where it is today. Mandela made sure that everybody understood that he had put his life on the line for the common good, not just of the blacks, but also of the whites. Raila, his chief aim is to deliver Kenya into the hands of the Jaluo. He's tribal, by the way. The rest of Kenya is a by the way. That in itself disables him as a credible contester for true national politics.
Are you people sitting here to suggest to me that President Ruto is not tribal?
That's true. But we're not talking about him because he's the one in the chair. We're talking about this guy who's now pretending that he can deliver Kenya to the next level at the cost of the man in the chair.
But I also think I believe, sure, that for me it is even a blessing to Odinga that he did not become a president of Kenya. because
I
what
hope he
is
believes
happening...
that. Do you think he believes that?
No, he may not believe it, but somehow I believe it was a blessing to him. Because what is happening in Kenya today in terms of... no, a blessing to him, not a blessing to Kenya, because Kenya is not yet safe. But if he became a president, the living conditions of Kenyans will not have changed. It will be the same things that Kenyans are experiencing today.
It will be worse.
The economic situation will not have changed, and nothing much against what he's claiming would have changed. I'm sure the issue of increasing taxes, which President Ruto is imposing, may not have happened because he will have known what would have been the implications. But these other things will have happened. Now, that means, therefore, that the problems in Kenya, like any other country, because what the price of unga in Kenya has gone up, so have we in Uganda, though Tanzania,
and in Mali and in South Africa.
Exactly, all these things have gone up.
The price of ugali going high, but it's available. What about countries that even don't have it?
Now, those ones should cater for themselves also.
Yes.
But
so the point I'm making,
those ones should wait for the wheat from Russia.
Ukraine.
No, from Russia, because Ukraine is not going to export. But all said and done, I think the normality, the issues of Africa, I think, have been so trivialized so much so that if you think of the money which is going to be raised in terms of taxes, for example, that the government of Kenya intends to raise, what is it going to do? You'll find that a lot has been taken in the spending on military, because the Kenyans have to be like another country to be secured, and the country has to be protected. And where are you taking this money? Like she put it, you said it rightly, that they were taken into exhibition room to see the latest in terms of technology that we can buy.
Military technology.
Yes, and that we can buy. And we buy these guns for what? You are buying guns to go and kill yourselves. The bullets that killed the Kenyans who are demonstrating were not made in Kenya, but they were given to Kenyans to kill themselves. So until such a time that Africans also need to wake up and say, by the way, we have killed ourselves enough, and we are continuing killing ourselves. Can we do something different that will put us on the same table with these guys who are coming here? By the mere fact that they are calling us, it means they need us. And they may not do without us. But what is the benefit of us interacting with these people?
Actually, the entire world may never do or even live well without Africa.
Sure.
Africa is now the main supplier of all the raw materials that are being used all over the world.
Including the human.
But after using them, they call us third world. Why? Because they are taking them.
You're only supplying raw materials,
exactly.
You deserve that title.
You can easily.
If you're not adding to the pool of intellectual property,
exactly.
You're not adding to the pool of invention, you're not adding to the pool of initiative.
Someone is sitting somewhere in a garage and print papers in the form of money, and that is the money exactly sells to Ugandans. And what are we buying? What does, other than having those papers, what else do they have to back up that money? Nothing. Thank you so much for the time we have been with you on this program of the Pan-African Friday, where we look at a number of issues. And I think people can say the closing remarks, and we go off because then the program is coming up our way.
I think this question of instability in the African continent, unfortunately, is a double-edged sword.
Sure.
It has, of course, its roots in influence of others, some from nearer our shores, others from further away. But a big problem is also our own selves.
Exactly.
We have failed to establish our own interests and to remain true to the focus that we should have.
And our beliefs. Exactly.
I want to say one word to Comrade William Ruto. In Pan-Africanism, we believe that there are only two methods of solving a problem. The first one is always peaceful resolution. When peaceful resolution fails, the opposite works. Raila Odinga needs the opposite of what you're handling.
But he's the master of the opposite.
Whatever it is. Okay, we can. You see, sometimes we can. Sometimes.
But also remind him that. Thank you so much, the viewer who has been with us for all this time, and we appreciate your time. Next time will be better. We'll be back here on Friday to discuss the next episode of the issues on the African continent. Until then, have a nice weekend and be blessed. Thank you.
Of the day on UBC.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having